All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys can hear me. Just can't put the Gemara on the table. So we left off today's Kuf Lamed Beis. No, Kuf Lamed Aleph is today. We left off the bottom of Kuf Lamed. We were discussing being Mechal Shabbos and for a mitzvah, specifically the mitzvah of Bris Milah. And so we had a question of whether one is allowed to go ahead and carry, and it was only in a D'Rabbanan. So that was according to third opinion, according to Rabbi Shimon. All right, D'Oraisa, Rabbi Eliezer says you can even carry, and it's just a rabbin. The Rabbanan said you can't carry at all. And there was another opinion. We're talking about carry through a D'Rabbanan case. So now the Gemara gets a side note. So Amar Le Rav Chanina Chuzai LeRabba. In the bottom of Kuf Lamed Amud Beis. So 4 lines in the bottom. So Amar Le Rav Chanina Chuzai LeRabba Maishna Ki Ervu Chatzeres in Batim. The Nintuk Chatzeres Masu Batim. What's the difference, right? When you have the Erev of Chatzeres with the houses, in other words, you can carry from the houses into the Chatzeres, the Nintuk Chatzeres Masu Batim. Then, basically, in essence, in addition to being attached to the Mavui, it's not just the Chatzeros, but since the Chatzeros are now, with the Erev Chatzeros, are attached to the houses, it's like the houses are attached to the Mavui, and that's why you can carry there. The Rav Rav goes to Shitaso. Dama Rav, Eina Mavi Nitak Belechi. According to Rav, you can't go ahead and just carry in a Mavui if there's a Lechi, a pole, or a post going across. Ad sheyu bati v'chatzeros paisim l'seicha, until you have houses and chatzeros open into them. In other words, you have to have not just a simple chatzer open into the mavui, but you have to have the chatzeros that are attached to houses that are attached to the mavui in order to be able to carry it. And over here, right? So you have houses, but you don't have chatzeros. If you don't have, right? So therefore, in this case. But because you have the Erev Chatzeros, they're all considered to be houses, but now the Chatzeros are an extension of the houses. So it's like houses are attached to them, but we don't have Chatzeros. So Gemara wants to know, Kilu Erev Nami, so when there is no Erev, right? So in that case, let it be that we should view it as the houses are basically cut off because there's no air. You can't carry from the house into the chatzer. So therefore, therefore you can't go ahead and carry from the house to the chatzer to the mavui. So it's basically like that. Since you can't carry the house into the mavui, right, or the house into the chatzer, it's like the house is cut off from the chatzer, and basically you don't have houses connected to the mavui. The chatzer is iku batim leka. Therefore, you only have chatzeros and you don't have batim. So why is it that Rav ruled they can go ahead and carry throughout the mavui if you also have a requirement of houses, right, open into the mavui, right? The houses have to be part of it in order for the mavui to be carryable. So Gemara says, no, right? One of them can go ahead and be mavatal. People basically, everyone goes ahead and says, you know what, I'm not going to go ahead and carry this. I'm mavatal my argument, my portion in this area. And if everybody does it but one person, since that one person, he's the only one who now can carry into it. It's like his chatzer, and nobody else who shares the same chatzer can carry into it because they basically have given up their rights to the chatzer. So the Gemara says, "So ba'isika batim laka." Okay, that's nice, but you don't have batim that open up into the chatzeros. All you have is a bias. You have one. So the Gemara says, "No." He said, "Okay, fine. In the morning, one guy." He'll be the only one allowed to, and then he'll renounce his rights, and somebody else will say, you know what, I want my rights back. And therefore, so in the morning, you'll have one guy be able to carry into the shared chatzer, and in the afternoon, you'll have another guy. And, but it'll always be independent. So the Gemara says, so now, but in the end, you'll never, it's always going to be one person. It's never going to be two houses open into the mavui. So Rav Ashi, who is the one who causes the chatzer to be aser to carry in the mavui? That's the houses. Veleka. And there are no houses there. Since there is no Erev Chatzeros, so therefore you would not be able to carry from the house into the Chatzer, and therefore anything that was in the houses you would not be able to go ahead and carry out into the Chatzeros, into the Mavi, because the Mavi is cut off. And therefore, but since the houses are cut off and there is no Erev to the Chatzeros, if there is an object in the Mavui, then that is mutter to go ahead and carry throughout the Mavui, and therefore to answer our original question, right, or to defend our original question, which we said that basically if something was left out in the mavli, it could be carried throughout as long as the houses are not connected to the chatzeros, because then the houses are cut off from the chatzeros, and therefore you don't have houses attached to the mavui. Fine. Now it gets easier. Now it's going back to what we discussed. Says the Gemara, Omar Rabbi Chia Bar Abam Rabbi Yechon Lo lekol Amar Rabbi Eliezer Machshir Mitzvah Deichnas Es Shabbos. But not for everything did Rabbi Eliezer say any mitzvah, even preparation of a mitzvah. You have to prepare for a mitzvah, and you have to do a malacha to prepare for the mitzvah. Not every mitzvah you're allowed to go ahead and do on Shabbos. It doesn't override Shabbos. Shaharei Shei Lechem Chayvas Hayom. Hey, the two lechem that are brought on Shavuos, you have to bring two loaves on Shavuos. And we say over there, in order for that to be done on Shabbos, to override the Shabbos, to bake them or to prepare them, he needed a special gzer shava. He couldn't just use the rule of machshir and mitzvah override Shabbos. No, he needed a special limud apasuk. He needed a special gzer shava, right? A common phrase in two different cases in order to go ahead and permit it. The tiny learner Bryce, Rabbi Eliezer, right? How do we know that the preparation of the shtei lechem override Shabbos? You can do on Shabbos if you need to. So Nemra Hava, the Omer, it says you have to bring it, the Omer, which is brought, right, on the next day of Pesach. The Nemra Hava, the shtei lechem, and also says that you bring the Hava by the shtei lechem, the two loaves that are brought on Shavuos. Just like we learned that by the Omer, right? The Omer, which is brought on the first day of Chol Moed Pesach. So we say over there that it's machshirin in order to cut it, to harvest it, to whatever you need to prepare it, to offer it, is Deicha Shabbos. So too, any preparations for the Shtei Alechem are also Deicha Shabbos. And Mufni, we say that this Gzeir Shava is Mufni, is open. Now, what does it mean open? In other words, that the word is not used for anything else. If it's used for something else, okay, then you could always ask on the logic of the two common terms. In other words, maybe there's not a similarity because one has characteristics the other doesn't have. But if each of them have an extra word and there's no other reason, nothing we learn out from that word, you can say, hey, the reason why this one has an extra word and the other one has an extra word is to link the two. Even if you can make a logical argument as to why the Shtei Alechem is different than the bringing of the Omer is different. Nevertheless, since they're both extra words, therefore you can darshan it. And so the Gemara says that these words are extra, and therefore you can darshan it. Dila mufni, because if they weren't extra, you can ask a kasha. By the Omer, if let's say you find one that was already harvested, nevertheless you have to go ahead and harvest it for the mitzvah, right? One is obligated to go ahead and harvest it. You can't use something that was already cut, not l'shem the mitzvah. Right? But by shtei lechem, you don't have to go ahead and harvest it l'shem of the mitzvah. So therefore, we find it, right, you can just go ahead and pick it up and use it. So if you go ahead and pick it up and use it, maybe it's because that the shtei lechem don't override Shabbos. So in other words, we must say it's extra in order to learn that. Otherwise, we could have made this argument. So the Gemara says, yes, afnuya mufne. Indeed, it is extra michtikasi because the pasuk says, "Va'avesem es aimer reishis ketzirchem el kohen." Right? You bring the Omer at the beginning of your first harvest to the Kohen. V'yayim haviachem lamali. Why does it say again on the day you bring? Why does it say haviachem again? Right? You already said, right? V'avitem es aimer. You bring it. So lamali shmamin olafnu. It must be because it is extra. The words of the hava or haviachem is extra. Therefore, it's extra. So Gemara says v'katim ufnem etzadecha. Maybe it's only extra on one side. Maybe it's only extra when it was listed by the Omer. But maybe there's no extra words by the shtei lechem. And we actually learn according to Rabbi Eliezer, if there's only an extra word on one side of the Gzer Shav, in other words, because we're comparing two different cases, right? If only one case is an extra word and not the second case, right? Maybe you'd say that, according to Rabbi Eliezer, if you only have one extra word, then you can go ahead and ask. So therefore, Taviyu riboyu, the word extra says Taviyu by Shtei Lechem, therefore that is extra, and therefore since it's extra, therefore, there's no way you can't ask on the logical difference between the Omer and the Shtei Lechem. Fine. Now, L'miyute mai. So he said, okay, we just said that we're going to go ahead and bris milah is the mitzvah, and excluding other mitzvahs, they're not Deicha Shabbos. So the question is, which mitzvahs are we excluding that Deicha Shabbos? Right. If we're saying it's the mitzvah of lulav, according to Rabbi Eliezer, lulav is doicha Shabbos, right? Lulav is according to him is doicha Shabbos, and any machshir they need to do, whether it's cut it or whatever it is. So those are doicha Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer. So it can't be. Rabbi Eliezer actually agrees that for lulav it does override Shabbos, right? You have to go ahead and cut it or prepare it. Maybe it comes to exclude sukkah. According to Rabbi Eliezer, he says also that sukkah, one who needs to go ahead and build a sukkah, whatever it is, and he has to do the final touch on Shabbos, he's allowed to do it according to Rabbi Eliezer. So maybe it comes to exclude the mitzvah of matzah. That maybe one has to bake. He doesn't have matzah. He just has, the wheat or whatever he needs. Maybe he can go ahead and bake it on Pesach or on Shabbos, right? Bake it. According to matzah is overrides it. So matzah and lulav and sukkah, those are all in the same ballpark as bris milah. So what are we talking about that Rabbi Eliezer holds is not doicha Shabbos? Maybe it's the blowing or the shofar, maybe cutting it off the animal or preparing it. According to Rabbi Eliezer, a shofar and any preparations for it is doicha Shabbos. So mezuzah lepischa, right? No, to exclude tzitzis, right? Person, let's say, needs to put on tzitzis, he's not allowed to go ahead and tie it on Shabbos. It's not doicha Shabbos. Or fixes mezuzah to the door, he has to do some sort of malacha. He cannot do that. So excludes that. That if he does go ahead and he ties the tzitzis, right? Or he puts up the mezuzah, right, for on his entrance, then he is indeed chayiv, right? He's a chayiv in such a case. So we see that according to Rebbe Eliezer, it is not doicha Shabbos, right? The mitzvah of tzitzis and mezuzah. We'll have to see why. In my time, what's the reason? Because it has no time. Tzitzis doesn't have a specific time. Mezuzah doesn't have a specific time. It goes on the garments. It goes on the house. And therefore, we say, so since it's nothing specific, therefore it applies all the time. And therefore, it doesn't have to override Shabbos. Wait till after Shabbos. As opposed to any of the other mitzvahs we're talking about, it has to do with holidays, certain times, days of the year, which could fall out on Shabbos. So those will override Shabbos. The Gemara says, opposite. Meidei kabul and zman. By the fact that it doesn't have a zman, maybe it's opposite. Maybe it means that it's always its zman. Every day is its zman. So therefore, maybe it should override it. So he can go, since he can go ahead and be mafkir, he can say, you know what, my beged is hefker. Since this beged is now hefker, it's not obligated in tzitzis. So therefore, he's patur from tzitzis. Or this house, this building is hefker, and therefore I don't need to put a mezuzah on it, and therefore he would be patur in such a case. Fine. So Zok to Gemara, we're 3 lines from the top, 2 dots. Omar Mar. So he said earlier, lulav v'chol machshirav deichnas Shabbos. Divi Rabbi Eliezer. According to Rabbi Eliezer, a lulav and any preparations, whether it's tying it or cutting them, is deichas Shabbos. Minole, Rabbi Eliezer. Where's Rabbi Eliezer learning that from? So if he learns it from the Omer and the Shtei Lechem, which you saw earlier, which are Deicha Shabbos, we learn one out from the other. So maybe we say that those are unique and different. Why? Shekain Sarach Gavoa, right? We're going to actually use this logic multiple times. So So it says because those are brought for a korban. Those are brought. We bring them in the mikdash. That's called Sarach Gavoha, right? It's brought for the mikdash. So Elar Makra. So rather, since we can't learn lulav from these karbanos or whatever, these offerings of the Omer and the Shtei Lechem, Elar Makra. The pasuk says biyayim. It says biyayim. Afilu b'Shabbos says you take your lulav on the day, and even if that day is Shabbos. So lamai. So for what? If it's telling you that it's not muksa, you use it. Do you need a pasuk to matter? Right, muksa. Right, muksa is not deraisa. The Torah doesn't come and tell you things about derabanan. So obviously, the Torah is not telling you that it's not muksa. I know it's not muksa because there's no muksa midaraisa. Right, elo l'machshira. Rather, it's telling you that if you need to go ahead and prepare your lulav, such as let's say cut it off the tree, then you can do that according to Rabbi Eliezer on Shabbos. Rabban, and according to Rabban, who argue and say, no, you can't cut your lulav on Shabbos, it's not Deicha Shabbos. No, he's learned something else. What does it mean? Biyom there means you take the lulav only during the day and not at nights. How does Rabbi Eliezer know you only do the lulav during the day and not at nights? So it says over there, you should be happy, right? Rejoice in front of Hashem 7 days. Yamim below Leilos, so those days and not nights. Therefore, you take the lulav during days and not nights. For Rabbanan, so what about that pasuk? Why don't you learn from there? Why do you use the other pasuk of Biyom? So it's true. He says, no, you still need another pasuk. Why? Maybe I would have thought that lulav is 7 days, just like sukkah. And it's just like by sukkah, it's during days and also nights. So too by lulav is also days and nights. Therefore, it comes to teach you that no, we have a special pasuk that tells you that lulav is days and not nights. Right? So why not maybe you just write the pasuk we know by lulav that it's Deicha Shabbos and all the other mitzvahs you can learn from it. So our answer is no. Because you can ask, my lulav shechein ton arba minim. Since lulav is special, that's unique, it takes 4 different species that you take it from gather and bring them together, and the others don't have this characteristic. Therefore, we could say maybe the reason why it's Deicha Shabbos is because it's arba minim as opposed to others which are not arba minim. Fine, 2 dots. Sukkah. Now that was lulav. Now let's deal with sukkah. The sukkah of Chamashir Deicha Shabbos. Divi Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer, Ace building his sukkah is Deicha Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer, how does he know that from? So Rabbi Eliezer, if he wants to say he learns it out from the offerings of the Om and the Shtei Lechem, Shechein Tzarkav. Oh, you can learn that because as we mentioned, right? Those are brought, right? Those are brought on the Mizbeach, right? Those are offerings. Right, so lulav, and if you want to go learn from lulav, shechein ton arba minim. Right, we just said lulav is unique because it's arba minim, so you can't go ahead and learn it from lulav. So Ella, rather learn from itself. Gomer shivas yamim lulav. Rather learn it 7 days from lulav. And malo halam nachshiv doiches Shabbos. Avkanami machshiv doiches Shabbos. Just like by lulav, as doiches Shabbos, right? As we mentioned, so too the sukkah is also doiches Shabbos. So why don't you go ahead and basically don't write the others, just write this halacha that sukkah is Deicha Shabbos, and the other is since sukkah is Deicha Shabbos, so all of the mitzvahs are Deicha Shabbos. So the Gemara says no. You could say no, that sukkah is unique. No, that sukkah is unique because it's days and nights. So since it's unique, it's both days and nights. Therefore, maybe that's the reason why it's Deicha Shabbos. But other things don't have the characteristic. So therefore, we can't learn others from sukkah. Next one, matzah. The whole machshir Deicha Shabbos, Rabbi Eliezer called matzah, and all his preparations of Deicha Shabbos is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. So the Rabbi Eliezer, where's Rabbi Eliezer learn this from? If you want to say once again, maybe we learn from the Shtei Lechem, shechein tzarich gavoa, like we mentioned, those are offerings to on the mizbeach, and therefore, but matzah is not offering mizbeach, so therefore maybe it doesn't have this unique stringency that it overrides Shabbos. And lulav, if you want to say we learn from lulav shechein ton arba minim, by lulav it has a special halacha that it's from 4 species. And sukkah, if you all learn from sukkah, that at night is the same as days, so it's all one long mitzvah. Rather, we're going to exer shava of from tasvav, right? From sukkah. So each one says on the 15th. So we learn unique. And Shabbos, just like by sukkah, we say it's Deicha Shabbos. So too, by matzah, if you need to go ahead and bake it or whatever you need to do, sift the flour, whatever it is, you're allowed to go ahead and do that on Shabbos. It overrides for the mitzvah of matzah. Okay, so maybe we just write the mitzvah of matzah and everything else we learn from it. So my answer is no. Because you can ask, matzah has a unique chumrah also that it applies to women just like men. So since it applies to women just like men, therefore maybe that's the reason why it's Deicha Shabbos. But other cases it doesn't apply to women, so that maybe those aren't Deicha Shabbos. Fine. Shofar, next one. Blowing the shofar on Yom Kippur. Excuse me, we'll get to Yom Kippur. Blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. The whole machshir of Deichen is the Shabbos Divi Rabbi Eliezer. Shofar and any of these preparations, whether maybe it's to finish making or clearing it out, or your masaking kli, which is a malach on Shabbos, it overrides Shabbos. This is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. So Manali the Rabbi Eliezer, where's Rabbi Eliezer knows from? So if it's from the Omer Shtei Lechem, as we said earlier, shechein tzarich gavoa. That's something that's unique because that requires being offered on Mizbeach. And lulav, if you learn from lulav shechein ton arba minim, the lulav is unique because it's from 4 different species, and you gather it together. And if it's sukkah, shofar, no, shechein noeges beleilas kaviyam, that applies to nights and days, just like days. And even matzah, if it's matzah, shechein noeges benashim kavanashim, it applies to women, both women and men equally. So Ella, Merkar, the passage says Yom Trua Yelachem. It says Yom Trua, right? Day of Trua. It should be for you. B'yom, it means on the day, afilu b'Shabbos. It means on the day, even on Shabbos. Ulamai. And for what reason? If it's for Tkiya, Hatana Dvei Shmo. So what's it telling you that you're allowed to do it on Shabbos? If it's just telling you you're allowed to blow the shofar on Shabbos, so Hatana Dvei Shmo, Kol Melechas Avodah Lo Yisasu. So the Torah forbids doing malacha, right? However, blowing the shofar is not malacha; it's not work, right? You're just blowing, wind or air into a shofar, right? Or right, putting dough inside an oven. You're not really doing anything, right? You're just you're putting in, right, or you're removing it properly the dough. These are chachma, these are wisdom, but these are not called actual malacha. So you see that blowing the shofar itself is not that which the Torah comes to say it's mutter to do, right? Right? Rather, it must be that's telling you that any preparations for the shofar, right? You have to, clean it out or smooth it, or right, whatever it is, that to do those malachas, that overrides Shabbos. I've rabbanim. What do the rabbanim say? I hope me boile. Actually, no, they need the word yom, right? They only blow the shofar during the day, not the night. Rabbi Eliezer b'yom v'lo b'layla manoli. Has Rabbi Eliezer no, only during the days, not nights. So nafle b'yom hakipurim taviru shofar b'chol artzachem. It says on Yom Kippur during the Yovel, right? During the day of Kippurim, then you bring the shofar in we learn from one another. So in other words, we learn that you blow during the day and not the night from Yom Kippurim, just like we did. So they're just like in Yom Kippur during the day. So during Yovel, so to Rosh Hashanah every year is during the day and not at night. Maybe we just write that doing malacha for a mitzvah of shofar, right? By in our parsha of shofar, and learn the other mitzvahs from shofar, mitzvah shofar. So Gemara says no, mitzvah shofar to Rosh Hashanah. So Gemara and learn it from mitzvah shofar to Rosh Hashanah. So Gemara answers no, like lemigmar. No, you can't learn them out. Why? Shechein machaneses, mikneses zichron shel Yisrael avinu shel Hashemayim, because it's a unique, right? This type of shofar, right, is something that basically we go ahead and we blow and we bring the zichron that we should be remembered of Bnei Yisrael to their Father in heaven. Mitzvah shofar. So of course, what about mitzvah shofar Yom Kippurim? So why maybe we should learn mitzvah shofar Yom Kippurim? That's also unique. Why? Tamar Taka based in shofar. Once based in blows the shofar on Yovel, then Niftur Avodim. Then the servants go back to their homes. And then also, not only are slaves freed during Yovel from the shofar blow, but also the lands go back to the original owners. And since that is unique, therefore we can't learn out any of the mitzvahs of Shabbos, not from Yom Kippurim, and also not from Tkiyah Shofar of Rosh Hashanah. All right, shkayach everybody. Sorry I had to go a little quick, but I got to get running. Everyone have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and Mit Hashem, I'll be